Okay, so I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we gather tonight for the third and final chapter of our introductory trilogy on Mahdawiyyah. As we stand at this summit, gazing towards the horizon of the future, it is vital to remember the path that brought us here. This series has been constructed like a building. The roof cannot hang in the air without walls, and the walls cannot stand without the foundation. While we will provide a summary of our previous discussions to orient the hearts, let us be clear. A recap is a map, it is not terrain. It is a summary, not a substitute. To fully benefit from tonight's session and any of our sessions, we strongly encourage everyone to engage with the previous sessions in their entirety and ideally in order. Each session unlocks a specific dimension of our ideology, and missing one leaves the picture incomplete. In His most beautiful name, we proceed with the recap. If I can get aloud, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأنت الفاتحة.
So before we speak of the destination, let us confirm our coordinates. Firstly, we have the commander. We began by establishing the identity of the leader. We moved beyond the vague universal hope of a future savior to the specific living reality of what is in the Shia Creed. We established that Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Askari, may our souls be his ransom, is not a myth waiting to be born, but a witness waiting to be recognized. He is the heir of the prophets, carrying the staff of Moses and the shirt of Joseph. He is the resurrector, al-Mab'uth, whose mission is not merely to preach, but to revive the earth with justice after its death. We corrected our vocabulary, understanding that ghaiba does not mean absence, being gone. Rather, it means anonymity, being present, yet unrecognized. Secondly, we looked at the soldier. Having identified the commander, we then turned the mirror upon ourselves to define the soldier. We shattered the idol of passive waiting. We learnt that intidhar is an action, what we call an amal, not just a feeling. The posture of a soldier standing guard, not a spectator sitting in the stands. We define the curriculum of the one who awaits. Firstly, self-building, cultivating wara' or scrupulous piety to purify the vessel. Readiness, acquiring quwwa or power, intellectual, moral and physical capability. And thirdly, system building. We established that we cannot invite the global government without building a base of operations. We recognize the resistance front not as a political accident, but as the theological necessity of tamheed, which we understand as paving the way. Now we come to the vision. We now face the final question of this introductory trilogy. We know who he is. We know what we must do. But why are we doing it? What is the prize at the end of this long history of sacrifice and struggle? If we build this self and we build the system, what does the world look like when victory is finally achieved? Is the Mahdawi state just a kingdom of swords? Or is it something far more profound? Tonight we gaze into the promised dawn. We will study the blueprint of the divine state, a civilization defined by the perfection of intellect, the abundance of economy, and the absolute reign of justice. In his name, and with full reliance on his support and guidance, we implore him for the tawfiq, the ability and the success to understand and to be among those who work in his way. Please give me a salawat. We move on to the main section, which is Introduction to Mahdawiyyah, Part 3, the Blueprint of the Divine State, the revolution of consciousness, and the maturation of mankind.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So first we must look at the end of humanity's childhood. Before we speak of armies and economies, we must speak of minds. For the first revolution of the Mahdi is not fought on the battlefield, it is fought within the human being. Too often we imagine the Mahdawi state as simply a time of abundant food and absent war. But this is shallow and materialistic in terms of visions of what it is. The Mahdawi state is not merely a storehouse of plenty. Rather, it is the university of perfection. History until now has been the childhood of humanity, a time of stumbling, ignorance, and immaturity. The era of the Mahdi is the adulthood of the human race. He does not come merely to rule over bodies. He comes to elevate minds and purify spirits. He comes to unlock the dormant potential buried within every human being. So first we look at the perfection of the intellect, Al-Aql. The first transformation is internal, the expansion of human cognitive capacity. Today, humanity suffers from a fatal disconnect between intelligence and wisdom. We have the technology to travel to Mars, yet we lack the wisdom to live peaceably on Earth. We can split the atom, yet we can't mend a family. We have mastered information and artificial intelligence, yet we drown in confusion. The Mahdi comes to repair this fracture. Imam al-Baqir describes this metaphysical intervention. He says, when our Qa'im rises, he will place his hand over the heads of the servants, so their intellect will be gathered, will be unified and strengthened, and their understanding will be perfected. And the reference is, of course, in the write-up. Ayatollah Jawadi-Amoli, may God protect him, in his commentary on this tradition explains that the hand of the Imam symbolizes his spiritual authority or wilaya. Under his guidance, humanity will move from mere cleverness, which can be wielded for evil, to true intellect, which recognizes and worships the truth. Ayatollah Jawadi says, the meaning of wiping the hand over their heads is a metaphor for divine upbringing, instruction, and the authority-based influence of the blessed existence of the Imam of the age. In that time, the intellects of the people will become perfect, meaning that the intellect by which the merciful is worshipped will blossom, while devilry, what we call shaitana, and trickery, which we call nakra, which merely resemble the intellect, will pack up and leave. And the reference is in the write-up. Now we look at the explosion of knowledge. So with perfected intellects comes the explosion of knowledge. We imagine ourselves to live in an age of science, the pinnacle of human discovery, we're told. But our traditions teach us that we have barely scratched the surface of reality. All that we know, all that we have ever discovered, is but a fraction of what awaits. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, reveals the staggering ratio of this transformation. Imam Sadiq teaches us, knowledge consists of 27 letters. All that the prophets have brought us is 2 letters, and the people have known nothing until today except these 2 letters. But when our Qa'im rises, he will bring out the 25 letters and spread them amongst the people. And the reference to this hadith is in the write-up. So I want you to pause and consider the gravity and weight of this statement of Imam Sadiq. Every prophet from Adam to Prophet Muhammad, every revelation, every science, every philosophy that humanity has ever possessed amounts to only 2 letters out of 27. The Mahdi unlocks the remaining 25. This is a civilization where the boundaries between physics and metaphysics dissolve, where the secrets of the cosmos and the mysteries of the soul are laid open. It is the golden age of science, not in opposition to revelation, but rather sanctified by it. Now we look at the spiritual transformation. Intellectual perfection, in turn, leads to spiritual transparency. In the Mahdawi state, religion is no longer a ritual performed out of habit. It becomes a reality witnessed by the heart. The darkness of hypocrisy will vanish. Today, a man can smile while hiding hatred in his heart. He can pray in public while plotting in private. But in the presence of the truth, the inner reality is exposed. The masks fall away. The Holy Quran promises a state where fear and hidden agendas are replaced by absolute security and sincere worship. In Quran, Surah An-Nur, the chapter of light, 24th chapter of the Quran, verse number 55, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "He will surely exchange their fear for security. They will worship me, not associating anything with me." Allama Tabatabai, may God rest his pure soul, explains in Tafsir al-Mizan that this verse promises a society cleansed of all partners to God, whether open idols or hidden hypocrisy. He defines this security as the total removal of any threat to the religion or the believer's soul, a state where shirk, the service, worship, or love of other than God, is eradicated from both the heart and society. Allama says, "This is the general security in which they will fear no enemy from inside their lands, nor from outside, nor any plotter who schemes against them. And the religion on that day will be pleasing to God purely for Him. There will be nothing of falsehood in it, nor any judgment from other than God." And the reference to this is in the write-up. This is the restful soul writ large, not merely in one person, but in an entire civilization. A world where the anxiety of falsehood is replaced by the tranquility of truth. And so, the first pillar of the divine state is the revolution of the consciousness. We're not merely waiting for political change. We're waiting for a transformation of what it means to be human. A world where ignorance is erased by the 27 letters of knowledge, where immaturity is cured by the perfection of intellect, where hypocrisy is dissolved in the light of sincerity. A world where it is easy to be a saint and difficult to be a sinner. Please give me a salawat and we move on to the second point, which is the revolution of society from greed to brotherhood. So firstly, we look at the transformation of the human economy. So the first revolution reshapes the mind. The second reshapes the world between us, the way we exchange, the way we own, the way we trust. To understand the Mahdawi economy, we must first diagnose the disease of our current world. So let's look at this diagnosis, the shackles of modern slavery. We live in an era of financial tyranny. The global economy is built on a foundation of debt. Money is no longer a store of value, it is a bond of servitude. Through interest and speculation, wealth is siphoned from the masses to a tiny elite. Human beings are reduced to consumers and human resources, valued not for their souls, but for their productivity and purchasing power. The food we eat, the homes we live in, the education we seek, all have been financialized, turned into products for speculation rather than rights of existence. A man works his entire life and still dies in debt. A nation produces wealth for generations and still owes more than it owns. This is not economics. This is enslavement with sophisticated vocabulary. And yet, this is not a modern disease. It is the ancient illness of hoarding dressed in new clothes. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, diagnosed its roots centuries ago. Imam Ali says in Nahj al-Balagha, "No poor person goes hungry except because of what a rich person has enjoyed." Poverty is not natural. It is manufactured by greed, by hoarding, by systems designed to concentrate wealth in the hands of the few. The Mahdi comes to shatter this system at its root. Now we look at the cure. Justice, not magic. So a question comes to mind. How? What is the secret of this Mahdawi economy? And the answer lies in understanding what money truly is. Imam Ghazali, in his profound analysis of economics, explains that gold and silver were created by God to serve a very specific function, to be judges of value and facilitators of exchange. They are like a mirror, possessing no color of their own, but reflecting the worth of other things. Money is meant to flow, to circulate, to serve. When it is hoarded or lent for interest, it is imprisoned, diverted from its created purpose, transformed from servant into master. The Mahdawi state liberates money from this prison. It returns wealth to its original purpose, a means to human flourishing, not an end in and of itself. But this then raises a question: is there enough? The capitalist worldview insists that nature is scarce, that there will never be enough for everyone, and therefore competition and inequality are inevitable. However, Ayatollah Shaheed Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, in his masterpiece Iqtisaduna, Our Economics, dismantles this myth. Just in the introduction, he says, the problem is not the scarcity of natural resources, but in the maldistribution and the injustice of man against his fellow man. The earth has always had enough. Allah has said so. It is the injustice that creates scarcity. Justice will unlock abundance. The Mahdi solves the economic problem not by magic, but by equity. When the hoarded wealth is released, when the chains of usury are broken, when resources are distributed according to need rather than greed, the earth will reveal what it has been holding back. And the narrations describe this unlocking in very vivid terms. This hadith is from a book of the Sunnah, but it's a hadith that we find within the Shia as well, where it is said, the earth will bring forth for him the pieces of its liver, meaning its hidden treasures of gold and silver. Now, this is not merely about discovering new mines or advancing technology, though they may play a role. It is about barakah, the blessing that descends when a society aligns itself with divine justice. The earth responds to righteousness, and the abundance will be so vast that the very concept of charity becomes obsolete. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, peace and blessings be upon him, describes a world where poverty is not merely reduced, but rather it is eradicated. Imam Baqir says, he will distribute wealth equally among the people. He's talking about Imam Mahdi. He will distribute wealth equally among the people until you will not see anyone in need of zakat or charity. The owner of zakat will walk around with his charity, with his zakat, and find no one to accept it from him. Think about that. Imagine a world where the problem is not finding someone to help you, but finding someone who needs help. This is the economy of the Mahdi. Now we look at the fruit, the death of greed. Yet the deepest revolution is not in the treasury, it is in the heart. Our current economic models are built on a philosophical foundation called rational self-interest, a polite term for greed. We are taught that humans are naturally selfish, and that the best economy is one that harnesses this selfishness for collective benefit. The Mahdawi model rejects this premise in its entirety. It is not built on self-interest, rather it is built on brotherhood. Our teacher, Ayatollah Muhsin Araki, may Allah protect him, explains that the economic system of Islam is founded on what we call Muwasaat, a word that implies not mere charity, but the equating of others with oneself. In the Mahdawi society, the rigid walls of private ownership soften in the face of a brother's need. Sheikh Araki says, the economic system of Islam is established upon Muwasaat, or sharing, not takathur, hoarding. In the society of Wilaya, the borders of private ownership fade in the face of the need of a religious brother. That narration which says a believer puts his hand in his brother's pocket and he does not prevent him is not merely a moral recommendation. Rather, it is the final image of the evolution of the economic structure of the Mahdawi society. And the reference for this is in the write-up. Now, the narration he references is very interesting. A description of trust so profound, it restructures human interaction. The hadith says, when the qa'im rises, a man will come to the pocket of his brother and take what he needs, and the brother will not prevent him. This is not theft. This is the absolute dissolution of the barrier between mine and yours in the face of genuine need. In a society where financial anxiety is extinct because every believer knows that his brother's wealth is his safety net, and his own wealth is his brother's safety net. And finally, the Mahdi acts as the great liberator from the chains of debt. In a world where nations and individuals are crushed under the weight of interest, the Mahdi fulfills the promise of the Prophet himself. Prophet Muhammad has said, I have more authority over every believer than he has over himself. And whoever leaves behind a debt or destitute dependence, it is upon me to settle, and unto me they belong. And this is a reference found within Shia books and Sunni books. And the references are in the write-up, of course. This establishes the legal principle that the Imam, as the head of state, acts as the ultimate guarantor. No family is left destitute by the death of a breadwinner. No debtor is imprisoned for poverty. The Baytul Mal, the public treasury, absorbs the burden, breaking the chains that the bankers have forged. And so the second pillar of the divine state is the revolution of society. It is the transition from money as master to money as servant, and from an economy of artificial scarcity to an economy of unlocked abundance, from a culture of greed to a culture of brotherhood. It is a world where no one is enslaved by a bank balance, for the treasures of the earth are laid open, and the hearts of the believers are laid bare in trust. Please give me a salawat and we move to the third point, which is the revolution of governance, the end of hegemony. So the first point is the dismantling of the world order. So we have spoken of the revolution within, the perfection of the mind. We have spoken of the revolution between us, the transformation of the economy. Now we turn to the revolution above us, the dismantling of the political order that holds humanity in chains. A perfected society cannot exist in a world ruled by wolves. Therefore, the final revolution is political. It is the dismantling of the global order of arrogance, what we call istikbar. So the first point here, the political revolution, the inversion of the pyramid. Today, the world is divided into two camps, the arrogant, al-mustakbirin, and the oppressed, al-Mustad'afeen. The arrogant are the geopolitical elites who hold veto power in the halls of nations, who control the banking systems that enslave countries with debt, who draw borders and topple governments to suit their interests. The oppressed are everyone else. The billions whose lives are shaped by decisions made in rooms they will never enter or don't even know exist. The Mahdi comes to invert this pyramid. He does not come to negotiate with superpowers. He comes to retire them. The Holy Quran announces this geopolitical shift as a divine promise. In Quran, Surah Al-Qasas, the chapter of the narrations, 28th chapter of the Quran, verse number 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we wanted to confer favor upon those who are oppressed in the land, and to make them leaders and make them inheritors. Imam Khomeini, may God rest his pure soul, who named his movement the government of the oppressed, or the movement of the oppressed, explained that this verse is the constitution of the Mahdawi state. Imam Khomeini said, "The birthday of the Mahdi is the day of the oppressed. It is the day when the promise God has given, and we wanted to confer favor, will be realized. The oppressed of the world have been promised, we shall make you leaders. This promise will come true at the time of his return, God willing, when the oppressed will triumph over the arrogant." And the reference is in the write-up. And with this inversion comes the erasure of false divisions that have fractured humanity. The artificial borders drawn by colonial powers, Sykes and Picot, the Durand Line, the partitions of Africa, etc., they are all dissolved. There is no first world and third world. There is only the kingdom of God. Ayatollah Jawadi-Amoli, may God protect him, explains that the Mahdi establishes a unified world government, not the globalism of the elites, which seeks to homogenize and exploit, but the universalism of Islam, which unites in diversity. Ayatollah Jawadi says, "In the global government of the Mahdi, the geopolitical borders which cause the separation of nations will be removed, and the entire earth will be like one city and one house. In that era, the criterion for value and superiority is not race, not nationality or language. Rather, it is only taqwa, or God consciousness." And the references in the write-up. Racism, nationalism, tribalism, the idols of the modern age, they are all smashed. The only criterion for honor is God consciousness. This is true globalization. Not the globalization of markets for the benefit of a few, but the globalization of justice for the benefit of all. Let's now look at the reign of justice from system to source. The defining characteristic of the Mahdi's rule is adala, or justice. But we must correct our understanding of what this means. Justice in the Mahdawi state is not merely a penal code where thieves lose their hands. It is the forensic diagnosis of why there are thieves in the first place. We must be very precise over here. This does not mean that personal responsibility is erased. The individual who commits a crime, even out of desperation, still bears the burden of that choice. For God has endowed every human being with free will and the capacity to resist. A sin remains a sin. A crime remains a crime, a transgression. However, in the scales of divine justice, there is a profound distinction between the sinner by circumstance and the architect of circumstance. Consider the woman driven to degradation by poverty, the youth led to crime by a lack of education, the father pushed to theft in order to feed his children. In the Mahdawi state, these individuals are accountable for their actions, certainly, but their culpability is weighed against their constraints. The Imam distinguishes between the hand that struck the blow and the system that forced the hand. The individual faces correction and rehabilitation, certainly, but the oligarch who engineered the poverty, the elite who have profited from this desperation, they face destruction. Imam Ali, in his historic letter to Malik al-Ashtar, described this doctrine of systemic liability. He taught that the moral corruption of people is often a symptom of the corruption of their rulers. Imam Ali said, "The devastation of the land only comes about through the destitution of its inhabitants, and the inhabitants only become destitute when the rulers concentrate on amassing wealth for themselves." And the reference for this is in the write-up. The Mahdi applies this principle with absolute precision. He does not merely punish crime. He dismantles the machinery that manufactures criminals. And now we look at the accountability of the elites and the purge of the traitors. And this brings us to the most severe dimension of the Mahdawi, justice, the accountability of those who should have known better. The Mahdi's sword does not fall heaviest upon the ignorant masses who can be taught. It falls upon the elite who knew the truth and concealed it, who had the power to prevent injustice, but chose complicity instead. And among these elite, none face greater accountability than religious scholars or ulama. There are terrifying narrations stating that when the Imam returns, his blade will fall upon the necks of thousands of so-called scholars and interpreters of Quran. Why? Is the Imam somehow against knowledge? Of course he's not, no. He's against betrayal. The scholar is not merely an academic. He is the physician of the soul. He has a duty of care. If a medical doctor is careless and kills a patient, the doctor is sued for malpractice. But if a scholar, or one masquerading as a scholar, manipulates religion to please a tyrant, or stays silent when he should speak, or speaks without investigation to gain popularity, he does not kill the body. He kills the faith and he murders the soul. Imam al-Sadiq describes a group called the Bathriyah, outwardly religious, memorizers of Quran, experts in jurisprudence, who will be the first to march against the Mahdi. Why? Because his justice threatens their status. Sheikh Mufid writes, he will then march to Kufa, meaning Imam Mahdi will then march to Kufa, and 16,000 will come out against him from the Bathriyah. They are armed, and they are readers of Quran and jurists in religion. They will say to him, go back, O son of Fatima, to where you came from. We have no need for the children of Fatima. So he will put the sword among them until he finishes them to the last man. Imam Sadiq also describes those who will fight the Mahdi, not with swords, but with twisted interpretations. Imam Sadiq says, a people will rise against him, interpreting the book of God against him, and fighting him based on their distorted interpretation of it. And the references for all of these are in the write-up. I invite everyone to review it. These are the scholars who weaponize religion against its own purpose. And Imam Khomeini, may God rest his pure soul, himself the pinnacle of the righteous scholar, did not mince his words about his own class. Imam Khomeini said, if the scholar becomes corrupt, the world becomes corrupt. The harm of a corrupt cleric to Islam is greater than the harm of Savak, meaning the Shah's secret police, like the CIA or Mossad. That is the army of Yazid, meaning Savak is the army of Yazid, but a corrupt scholar is worse than the army of Yazid. And the reference for this is in the write-up. In the Mahdawi state, the turban is not a shield of immunity. Rather, it is a target of higher accountability. The physician who poisoned the patient will face the ultimate malpractice tribunal. And this accountability extends beyond the clergy to every elite who trafficked in deception, the media that manufactures fear, the corporations that profit from lies, the politicians who sold their people for a bribe. We live in an age where crimes are committed not by individuals alone, but by networks and systems, where the architect hides behind liability shields and blame dissolves into complexity. The Mahdawi state operates on the Quranic command of tabayyun, forensic investigation. God warns us in Quran in Surah Hujurat, the chapter of the chambers, 49th chapter of the Quran, verse number 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, if a troublemaker, if a corrupt one brings you news, investigate, lest you harm a people out of ignorance and become regretful over what you have done. Allama Tabatabai explains that this is not merely personal advice. It is the structural pillar of a sane society. Allama says, this is a rational principle upon which the order of human society relies. For without it, the bonds of society would be severed and the vital interests of life would be suspended. The meaning of tabayyun is the demand for the uncovering of reality and making it manifest. The reference, of course, is in the write-up. In the Mahdawi government, this principle becomes law. The liability shield is shattered. The hidden profiteers are dragged into the light. The religious leader who issued a ruling without investigation is held accountable. The politician who took bribes to harm his people faces the full weight of justice. The lies of the powerful are exposed not by counter-propaganda, but by the undeniable revelation of truth. It is a justice that cleanses the river at its source. And so the third pillar of the divine state is the revolution of governance. It is the inversion of the pyramid, from the rule of the arrogant to the rule of the righteous. It is the erasure of false borders, from a fractured world to a unified kingdom of God. It is the reign of true justice, where the architect of oppression, not merely the victims of it, face the sword. It is a world where the powerful are accountable, the deceivers are exposed, and the oppressed finally inherit the earth. Please give me a salawat and we move on to the conclusion. So this conclusion is in two parts. The first part is the world worth working for. So tonight we have seen the vision. Very briefly, we've touched on it at a very high level. We've gazed into the promised dawn and glimpsed a world transformed. A world where intellects are perfected, where science and spirit are reunited, where humanity finally grows into its adulthood. A world where society is healed, where greed is replaced by brotherhood, scarcity by abundance, and the pocket of your brother is your safety net. A world where governance is just, where the oppressed inherit the earth, the arrogant are cast down, and the physician who poisoned the soul faces the ultimate tribunal. This is not a fairy tale invented by dreamers. This is the blueprint etched into the heart of every believer. It is the vision we are taught to yearn for every night in the holy month of Ramadan. In Dua Iftitah, taught to us by the second deputy of the Imam himself, we do not merely ask for forgiveness, we ask for government. We declare to God with full intention that this is the world we are fighting for. We say, O God, we desire from you an honorable state, through which you give honor to Islam and its people, and humiliate hypocrisy and its people. And we ask that you make us within it among the callers to your obedience and leaders to your path. And of course, this is from Dua Iftatah. Listen carefully to what we are asking. We are not requesting that a miracle simply happen to us while we sleep. We are asking to be callers and leaders within that state. We are asking for a role. We are volunteering for duty. This is a world worth fighting for. It is a world worth waiting for. It is a world worth working for. And it is a world worth dying for. Now the second part of the conclusion, the road ahead, a map for the journey. With this session, we complete our very introductory trilogy on Mahdawiyyah. We have spoken of his presence, our duty, and the vision of his future at an extremely high level. But this leaves a vast terrain unexplored. How did we survive the initial shock of his disappearance? How did a community bereft of its living guide over 1100 years ago organize itself to survive empires, inquisitions, and centuries of confusion? What structures were built? What institutions emerged? And how do we today maintain our connection to the Imam in an age when he walks amongst us unseen? These are questions that will occupy us in the sessions to come. Our next series within a series will travel back in time to the Ghaybat al-Sughra, the lesser occultation. We will study the lives of the four deputies, the Nawab al-Arba'a, the master strategists appointed by the Imam himself, who preserved the Shia, managed the community's affairs, and built the bridge that carries us to this day. We will examine why there needed to be a lesser occultation before the greater, and what wisdom lies in that transition. From there, we will move to the Ghaybat Kubra, the greater occultation, and trace how the community adapted to the absence of direct deputies. We will meet the towering scholars who held the line, people like Sheikh al-Sadiq, Sheikh Tusi, al-Mahili, and others whose names are written in light. Their struggles will teach us how knowledge was preserved when the enemies of the Ahlulbayt and of Islam sought to extinguish it. This historical journey will lead us naturally to the institution of Marja'iyah, the system of religious authority that guides the Shia world today. We will understand what a marja' is, how one is recognized, and what responsibilities this places on both the scholar and the follower. And once we understand Marja'iyah, we will be ready to tackle one of the most important and most misunderstood subjects in contemporary Shia thought, Wilayat al-Faqih, or the guardianship of the jurist. We will study the different theories that have emerged amongst our scholars. For example, the consultative model proposed by Ayatollah Muhammad Shirazi, the selective authority of the Hasbiyya school championed by Ayatollah al-Khoi, and the comprehensive guardianship implemented by Imam Khomeini, may God rest all of their souls, with careful attention to what absolute actually means and what it does not mean. This will take us deep into political jurisprudence, economic theory, cultural policy, and social governance. But we will do our best, God willing, to keep it alive and relevant rather than dry and academic. Only after we have understood the present will we turn to the future. We will explore the realm of eschatology, the signs of the return, the nature of the reappearance, the structure of the Imam's government, the identity of the 313 companions, and the role of Prophet Jesus in the final chapter. But we will approach these subjects not as spectators scanning the horizon with telescopes, setting dates and chasing rumors. We will approach them as soldiers seeking to understand the mission, so that when the call comes, we are not caught unawares. Now, I must be honest with you. The road I have just described, from the lesser occultation through Marja'iyah, through Wilayat al-Faqih, through eschatology, will take us, God willing, somewhere between 50 and 100 sessions before we've even scratched the surface. And when we have completed that journey, we will need to circle back and dig deeper, because we have yet to cover Ma'ad, but in order to cover Ma'ad, or resurrection, we need to return back to the foundations, beginning with Tawheed itself, and rebuilding our understanding with greater precision and greater depth. This is not a sprint, it is a lifetime's journey. But what journey could be more worthy of our time? We are not studying abstract theology. We are studying the roadmap to the salvation of humanity. And we are preparing ourselves intellectually, spiritually, and practically for the role we ask to grant us to be among the callers and the leaders in that honorable state. So let us walk this road together, one step at a time, with patience and with purpose, and let us ask Him to give us the tawfiq and to protect our intentions. Please give me a salawat, and we move on to the last portion, which is the supplication eulogy, which this evening is titled The Pledge of Those Who Wait. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, the Master of the Day of Judgment. O God, send your blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, the ship of salvation, the ark amidst the flood, the rope stretched between you and your creation. O God, send your blessings upon Muhammad, the seal of your prophets, the beloved of your heart, the mercy you sent to all the universes. And send your blessings upon his daughter, Sayyidah Fatimah al-Zahra, the radiant one, the mother of her father, the mistress of all the women of the universes. She who stood at the door of the usurpers and let her voice be heard when the men were silent. She whose anger is your anger and whose pleasure is your pleasure. In these blessed days of her birth, we renew our pledge to her. that we will not abandon what she defended, and we will not forget what was taken from her. And send your blessings upon her sons, Imams Hassan and Hussein, the masters of the youth of paradise, the lamps that flickered but were never extinguished. And send your blessings upon the Imams of guidance, the lights in the darkness, from Ali ibn al-Hussein to Imam Hassan al-Askari, each one a son, each one silenced, each one waiting for the dawn his grandson will bring. And send your most perfect blessings upon the one we await, your proof over your creation, your sword unsheathed, your word that shall never be broken. Our beloved master, Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hassan al-Mahdi, may our souls be your ransom, and may God hasten your return. Peace be upon you, O remnant of God on his earth. Peace be upon you, O son of the prophetic moons. Peace be upon you, O promise that has not been forgotten. O our master, the world is dark without your sun. Our intellects are incomplete without your guiding hand. Our justice is fractured without your scale. We stumble through the age of wolves, lost in a jungle that calls itself civilization. We are tired, O God. We are tired of the rule of the arrogant. We are tired of the laws written by the lawless. We are tired of watching the oppressors inherit the earth while the righteous are buried beneath it. We long for the rule of your representative. We long for the government of the oppressed. We long for the honorable state we beg you for every night in the month of Ramadan and every night regardless. O God, we desire from you that honorable state through which you honor Islam and its people and humiliate hypocrisy and its people. But we do not come to you empty-handed, asking for miracles while we sleep. We come to you with a pledge that we will work to pave his way, that we will build ourselves into vessels worthy of his call, that we will not sit idly by in the stands while the soldiers of falsehood march, that we will make his name known in a world that has forgotten, and his face recognized in a time of anonymity. O God, make us the bricks in the wall of his city. Make us the servants in the court of his justice. Make us the callers to your obedience and the leaders to your path. We know we are weak. We know we are scattered. We know our sins are heavy and our deeds are light. But you are the one who strengthens the weak, who gathers the scattered, and who forgives the sinner who returns. So do not leave us to ourselves, O most merciful of the merciful. Do not let our hearts deviate after you have guided them. Do not write us amongst those who waited and then, when the call came, turned away. O God, let us live to see that day. Let us see the sun rise over a world filled with justice as it was filled with oppression. Let us see the wolves brought low and the meek lifted high. Let us see the scales of Ali in the hand of his son, weighing the deeds of the tyrants. And if we are not destined to see it with these eyes, then let our children see it. And if our children are not destined, then write us among those who paved the way, who lit the candles in the long night, who never stopped waiting. And when the trumpet blows, O Lord, resurrect us in his army. Let us taste one breath of air in a world ruled by your justice. Let us kiss the ground beneath his feet and say, we waited for you, we worked for you, and by God's grace, we never lost hope. O God, send blessings upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and hasten their relief and our relief through them. Amen, O Lord, sustainer of the universes. Amen, O most merciful of the merciful. وآخر دعواني الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.